Selection of the spot and the time will determine how big of a wave you will catch. Some points where I say, okay, a great surfer cannot make a wave break. Pivot, meaning change the spot, right? Like you're there at either the wrong time or it's simply the wrong spot. You went to an area which is the Mediterranean beach. It's a closed-end seas. There are no beach. There are no waves, right? You will not be able to surf there. So like, understanding in depth your market and really tweaking it or moving even out early enough, I think is one. Then selection of the spot and the time will determine how big of a wave you will catch. And that's all about homework, right? Doing your homework on like, why am I the right guy to surf in this spot and dominate this spot? And is it really large enough or is it a tiny wave, right? Again, I think I said that earlier. The effort for small and a big wave is the same, right? So in essence, if you're putting in the hard labor and you're sweating and you're, like your family life suffers, your friends suffer, everything else in your life suffers, choose a really large wave and don't be afraid of training or going after a large wave. Then the biggest effort is required at the start. So what I mean is really like if you envision that surfer, right, and he's like a new set of waves is coming in, the most technical part are a few things. Number one, reading the timing, not being too far front, and can only be like by a few months, and then you're considered like too early, and then just a little bit too late, and you miss the wave, and then you're spot on, then you're called a contrarian genius, right? So I think like really like pick a big one and at that initial stage, the timing, the reading of the timing, and that has a lot to do with domain knowledge and reading the market overall, understanding that, and ideally having an unfair advantage when you read the timing. So through domain knowledge or through unfair advantages otherwise. But it has a lot to do with technical skills as well. So like a serial entrepreneur, if you watch a serial entrepreneur build a company, the sequence of execution is very different from a new entrepreneur because he has done that before. He knows exactly when to push up, move forward, adjust on the board, tilt in, whatever it is, right? Like you know all the examples yourself of building a company, what you would have done differently in terms of sequence, when to hire for that extra BD, etc. So that can be done through training, reading, domain knowledge, doing homework as well. I think death penalty, and that's something that can happen once you're up and you're all the way in the barrel or whatever, and like really an advanced surfer, it can still happen. You can wash out. And it can be just like, hey, honey, I'm surfing, and I forget to focus, and I wash out. Right? So I think it's very important. It can happen at every round. And it can happen also when you're a public company, that you kind of forget. You think you're safe. You're not safe. You're always on a moving vehicle or moving wave that really, if you lose that momentum and touch with the market, you're out. You're too far down. You're too far behind. You miss the wave. You have to readjust and recalibrate. So like, never allow yourself or your company to lose that focus and innovate and push. Opportunities and waves travel in sets. So sometimes you're lucky and there's a second chance. So maybe I think when I look at entrepreneurial outcomes, being ahead of the wave is dangerous if there's a big set, because then it splashes on you and it's probably you have to close down the company, like you're fully washed out. If you miss it and you tipped over the tip and you look behind you, oh, there's more waves coming. You have another chance maybe if you adjust quickly enough, right? But like I think being too early, too long, you're out. You're probably out. So like for us is really like sensing or finding the entrepreneur that tells us about the timing and why it's right and why this go-to-market is right and why is this the right strategy. So that strategic thinking an in-depth know-how is really, really key at what we look for. I like it, and it's a little bit Peter Thiel, I guess, like try to go into 0 to 1 markets, right, where there's no competition, but they're extremely hard to spot. And sometimes, as an investor, where we sit, we invest in extremely early. So spotting that market where there is 0 competition versus having a graveyard because they're sharks is a pretty thin line when you're still on the, because we're so early, so we're still talking to the guy. He's not even in the water, right? So we don't know if he can surf, and we don't know if there's sharks or anything, right? So like understanding that piece is, again, really the job of the entrepreneur, because I don't understand the depth of the market. My job is to try to extract it from the entrepreneur and understand what's going on. Homework is really understanding. I think a dangerous one for me is as well meeting that entrepreneur who likes to hang out at the surf shop and has watched a lot of movies about surfing and really knows how to talk about surfing. So it's very hard for me to understand when I meet him on shore if he can actually surf because he knows all the jargon, right? So I think that's also train, invest in the skill and the art. And I think there are many ways to learn how to build a company. Sometimes you're not necessarily the guy driving the show. Maybe you're joining a super fast growing company, and I think that's a fantastic battle learning ground, or joining a unicorn, or even angel investing, you know, actively angel investing with micro tickets on angel list or whatever, right? It kind of gives you a sense of what other people are doing wrong and trying to learn from that as much as possible. But the best trainer is really like the doing. I think like I'm much of a haptic learner than theoretical learner. And I think entrepreneurship is a lot about actually touch and feel and making those mistakes yourself, and also the winnings. Then do it for the right reasons, I think is important, because it will give you that extra bit of perseverance when everybody else gives up.